Thanks for joining, everyone. I'm really excited to welcome you to our second of 3 water tech talks this week. We had an event with Switzerland Global Enterprise yesterday. We've got an event with Seattle Clean Tech Alliance tomorrow. And today is our chance to chat about resource sector water challenges in the mining and energy space in Canada, which I'm really excited about. I want to acknowledge that I'm joining you today from the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh in Vancouver, Canada. And especially as we talk about water challenges, I think it's so important to frame that against the backdrop of First Nations drinking water challenges, which obviously as Canadians, we live around every day. I do want to mention before I hand it over to Jeanette that this is such a great turnout for us. We've been trying as WaterNEXT to reach water tech SMEs across Canada and support them across multiple sectors. And we've got SMEs from 6 different provinces joining us today, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I think just a sign of things to come as we keep working to support the water tech landscape. Our agenda today, we've got a quick intro from Foresight's CEO, Jeanette Jackson, and then we will hand it over to David Sanguinetti and a fantastic panel of resource sector folks from the mining and energy spaces to chat about water challenges. And then we'll jump into breakout sessions for some less formal conversations. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jeanette to introduce Foresight and WaterNEXT.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alan. And before I dive right into just a quick intro so that everyone can get on to the fun stuff, I just wanted to shout out Alan Shapiro. So Alan has taken the lead on Foresight's WaterNEXT initiative. It's been amazing having him join the team and really support the sector across Canada. So thank you, Alan, for your support and leadership on this so far, and look forward to seeing where we take it in the next year here. A little bit about Foresight. Most of you know who we are. We are Canada's clean tech ecosystem accelerator. The innovation community in Canada is at the core of everything that we do. Our goal is to really position Canada as a global leader in clean tech innovation through a series of different programs and initiatives that not only ensure that those ventures and innovators are really well supported and scaling, but that the other communities and stakeholders are also engaged, which of course include government, industry, academia, and investors. And so at the heart of what we do, it's really to identify and commercialize and drive the adoption of clean tech solutions across many sectors, water being a particularly important one. So at the end of the day, we all know that this is a global problem. 2.2 billion people lack safe drinking water, 4.2 billion people lack safely managed sanitization services, and of course 2.2 billion people also live in countries experiencing water stress from climate change. And so we also know that 50% of the innovation required to meet climate targets, which are not only GHG related, we often don't focus on GHGs, but we need to look at fresh water and that vital source for all of us to survive. But innovation is at the heart of how we address these problems. And of course, with innovation comes opportunity. So if we have over 430 active water innovators in our country, and there is a big economic opportunity as well as a climate opportunity, I think it's all hands on deck to figure out how we mobilize resources, collaborate, and really work together to do that positioning for Canada. Next slide. So what we did is we started WaterNEXT. It was really something that came out of relationship with WaterSmart. I know that Claire is going to be on the line today or tomorrow as well. WaterSmart is a Calgary-based water innovation support organization, and our collective came together to really take WaterNEXT to the next level. Also want to thank Xylem, who's the lead founding partner on this initiative as well. But it's really, WaterNEXT is really about bringing together the innovation community as well as all these other stakeholder groups so that we can mobilize this technology to reach these new climate targets. So without that, I'm going to pass it on to the main agenda, and back to you, Alan and David. Have a great session, everyone, and enjoy. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Jeanette, for that introduction. And I'm going to hand it over to our VP Technology, David Sanguinetti, to kick off the panel. I also want to say that before joining Foresight, David comes from a background in mining sector water challenges. And so we're thrilled to have his experience and to draw on that in the breakout rooms especially. One housekeeping item. We'll try to keep it fairly informal today, but at least for the length of the panel, if you don't mind throwing your questions in the chat, and David can pull those out for the conversation. And then as we get into the breakout rooms afterwards, that'll be everyone's chance to get their videos and microphones on. So with that, David, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Alan, and welcome everybody. So we'll start off. This really isn't about me. It's about our panelists, and so I would like to welcome them all and give quick introduction of them to you. So we'll start with Claire. Water Smart was mentioned by Jeanette, and Claire is their Chief Operating Officer. So Claire's passionate about water and has been involved in water industry for over 7 years. I've worked with her on founding of WaterNEXT and a few other initiatives as well. She's certainly very, very knowledgeable about the space, and I guess recognizing that is why she is also the lead on water tech for CRIN, the Clean Resource Innovation Network. In education background, she's a chem eng, same as I am, with focus on environmental engineering. And she's also, yeah, I think, just reading here, Bachelor of Chem Eng from UBC and Master's from London, University College London, as well as an MBA from Queen's. So welcome, Claire. We also have JC Bourgeois, who's a water treatment engineer from CNRL. So JC has approximately 20 years experience in water and wastewater treatment. On the process design side of things, he started off as a water and wastewater process engineer in the municipal sector, doing a number of potable and wastewater system process selections, pilot studies, plant designs, including membrane systems. But most of his career has been spent in industrial, primarily thermal in situ produced water treatment. So he's with the upstream oil and gas sector, and most recently he spent significant amount of time doing technology development in the design of large produced water treatment facilities and operational support. And currently he's a technical committee chair for the Water Technology Development Center pilot testing facility that's been installed at Suncor's Firebag site. Next, we have Keith Mayhew. So it's funny, Alan mentioned that I have a background in water treatment in the mining sector, and at one stage Keith was my client, going back a few years now. But it's good to see you again, Keith. And Keith comes from tech, where he has over 20 years of processing, commercial, and management experience. He's got his master's in mining from UBC, and is with Tech's Technology and Innovation Group, based here in Vancouver. But he's been involved in various roles in engineering studies, pilot plants, including water treatment, plant startup activities, and he's currently playing an active role assessing water and tailings technology. Now, I know there was a question. Do we have Sylvie Saint-Jean on the call yet?
Not yet, but I hope she's still joining us.
So just so that you know, when assuming she does make it, Dr. Saint-Jean is over 20 years experience in the mining space with a focus on water management. She started off as a research scientist with the Government of Canada. And so there she was doing an alternative to the fish survey for the metal mining effluent effect monitoring program. Served with the Canadian National EEM Science Committee, And while during her tenure there, she received Young Canadian Scientist Award. Dr. St. Jean then joined industry, has over 15 years operational experience at various sites. And key thing right now, she is with a Cisco development. So she's in the mining space and very much welcome here to bring that expertise. So now I'm going to jump over to our panel questions. So I'd like to start just running through in order, if each of you could spend 5 minutes or so discussing your background and what are your current water challenges? What in your organization? What's the biggest problem you're facing? And what are you hoping is out there that might be able to solve it? So how about we start with Claire? So bringing both your own background and sort of the CRIN experience as well.
All right, perfect. Thanks, David, for the introduction, and nice to see everyone here this morning. So yes, I'm Claire Jackson, the COO at WaterSmart Solutions. Definitely some familiar faces here. And this morning I'm wearing, as David said, kind of a couple of hats. So obviously as WaterSmart, also representing CRIN as the co-lead for the water technology theme at CRIN. I lead that with Adele Zanatti from CNRL and Nick McGregor from Suncor. And then kind of also further to that, we, as Jeanette said, work really closely with Foresight on the WaterNEXT Accelerator program. So just a little bit of background about WaterSmart. So at WaterSmart, we work across the resource sector. Historically, we've done a lot of work in the oil and gas space, both conventional and unconventional. And we've also worked a lot with kind of the collaborative groups in that space. And that collaboration is kind of the key to our success. So we've worked with CRIN and quite a bit with COSIA as well. And then a lot with kind of the independent operating companies too. And we've also worked a lot kind of in the mining and power generation space. So kind of why I'm listing all these kind of different spaces in the resource sector is, to me, it's really important to not only understand kind of in depth the sector that you're looking at, but then also the adjacent sectors, thinking about technology and technology applications. There's a lot of opportunities in adjacent sectors that kind of have really similar challenges. So when I think about the challenges, I think I'll kind of address them from the CRIN lens. So in the CRIN Water Technology Working Group, a couple of years ago when we got going within CRIN, we took some time to survey the challenges that had been published in the resource sector, and then leverage the working group within CRIN to kind of rank the challenges, to understand what challenges were the most important to industry, what challenges presented the biggest headaches for everyone. And some of the challenges that we've understood to be real pain points. The first one is access to online real-time data. And that's both on-site data and at a watershed level. And really core to this challenge at the site level, particularly in the oil sands, is reliable online analyzers that can operate at high temperatures with low operational and maintenance requirements. I imagine some of you have heard that one before, and there's a lot of kind of check boxes that need to be checked there, a lot of testing that is necessary. And then secondary to that challenge is really the access to the real-time watershed data when considering kind of the water sourcing, use and reuse, and then long-term strategic planning. And I think we'll see this challenge increasing in kind of become more of a front of mind issue, I guess, as ESG reporting, contextual water reporting becomes more of a focus across the resource industry. And the other one there, I think, is kind of the watershed data, the groundwater data as well. I don't think it's a huge challenge, but it certainly is a focus. So it's something to keep in mind. Other than that, kind of water treatment does continue to be a focus across the resource sector. When I think about water treatment in the resource sector, I think it's really important to understand that it looks different across different parts of the sectors. and that kind of fit for use or fit for purpose water will be super important. So really understanding the challenges of the portions of the market that the technology is trying to address, and not kind of overdoing the water treatment, but also not underdoing it. So it's kind of a balance, but certainly that understanding is important, and water treatment, again, kind of reuse, and disposal will continue to be a focus. And then finally, thinking of kind of the oil sands sector specifically, and building off the fit for purpose water treatment is the challenge for steam generation from untreated water and or more efficient feed water production. And that kind of links across to a number of other industries, specifically ones that use water at high heat or use steam and need to produce steam. I'll leave it at that and pass it on to whomever is next, and looking forward to the chat and the conversation.
Thank you very much, Claire. Perhaps we can go to JC next. So JC, if you similarly could introduce some of the biggest challenges you've faced in the water treatment side of things right now in CNRL.
Sure, absolutely. Can you hear me fine?
I can, yes.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so I've worked at, I guess, in the municipal, as was mentioned previously, but I've also worked at Shell and now CNRL, primarily in the water space over the last, oh gosh, now I'm dating myself, 10, 12 years. So what I've found in that time, and I've also worked in development and technology development. I'm kind of doing a bit of operational support and tech development at the moment with my role at the Water Technology Development Center. But what I've found over the years is that, our water within the in situ thermal space, our water treatment plants are a major component of our cost in order to extract our production. So you can imagine capital cost is a major factor. And, back in the heyday, development could proceed at a pretty rapid pace. Oil price supported that. It doesn't really anymore. So there's been a shift now towards improved OpEx and making use of what we have. So we've made a shift from sort of, greenfield, longer term developments to getting the most out of what we have and more incremental improvements. So I think from that perspective, we've sort of brought it back a little bit to what can we do with what we have. So I think though, improving the efficiency of what we have is a big focus. So more efficient steam generation is what we're looking at, I think, as a big component. Still keeping our eye on the future. So, technologies and strategies to unlock greenfield production is required. We need lower costs, both on the capital and the operating cost side of things, to enable that future development. But really, we're in the nearer term, we're kind of focused inwardly on what we have, as I mentioned. A big part of that, and it was mentioned earlier, climate change and GHGs is a big part of that. I know it's not necessarily a water thing, but keep that in mind. That's a major challenge for us right now in industry, especially with the new carbon taxes that are going to be hitting our assets here before too long. So anything in that space is good. So, but on the water side, to keep it there, improved efficiency in steam generation, reduced water usage is a big challenge. But at the end of the day, these are largely water treatment plants, and we often have the major challenges usually come down to fouling and dealing with the wastes. So, they're hot processes. We do a lot of heat exchange. We have a lot of fouling issues in heat exchangers, in piping, in vessels. And that's a major issue. Almost inevitably, that's what it comes down to in almost every water treatment process. That's where it's gonna bite you. And then Claire also mentioned as well, and I'll put another little plug. I'm also the lead for the process monitoring working group within COSIA, and it was mentioned analyzers that can deal with high temperature, high fouling service. So to give you an idea, a lot of the analyzers that work in other clean water environments don't work that well for us. We have a lot of challenges in that space, and again, it comes back to fouling, right? And our process conditions are just, challenging in general because of the high temperatures and pressures. So, steam quality analyzers, hardness analyzers, so analytical type things, pH has always been a challenge for, I mean, I could go on, but, a lot of them we're working on. We've got active projects going to attempt to address many of those. But anything along the analytical space is often of interest, and like I say, a challenge area for us. So I'll leave it at that.
Excellent, thank you. So next, we'll pass to Keith.
Thank you, David. Morning, everyone. I currently work within the Tech's Innovation Group, so looking for higher value opportunities for the company. As David mentioned, him and I worked on water treatment in the Elk Valley going back 10 years now, so no shortage of challenges within the company, and probably before getting the challenges, similar to other comments already made, Tech is a major digital program ongoing through Race 21, so really focused on digitization, automation. So we're trying to now, be it our water treatment plants or source control, you name it, bring in the data piece into that. So when we look at existing challenges for the company, water quality is top of the list. Lots of R&D ongoing. It's kind of exciting to see this type of forum to help address those issues. Source control, different treatment options, obviously being things we are currently focused on, coupled with the data piece, that real-time data to augment our existing sites. Challenges vary significantly site to site. We have sites in North America where we have too much water, sites in South America where we have too little. So everything from using seawater, pumping up 4,000 meters, there's no shortage of challenges, but a huge focus on reuse, recycling of hot water on site. And then in our colder climate sites, too much water can be a theme. So effective water treatment options, preventing the metals leaching to begin with, big items that we're focused on. Some people may be aware as well, within the Elk Valley at our coal mines, we have a selenium challenge within Tech, and so that's been ongoing now for over a decade, and where David and I go back on a lot of different work. Other constituents of interest, absolutely a complicated problem requiring a long-term approach with both internally and with our stakeholders. But we're adapting that plan. New technologies absolutely open to using those there. There's some higher level challenges we're facing too as an industry. So things like climate change at our colder sites, it's really changing constituents in our water, what we're having to treat, increasing regulations. There's other challenges we're facing kind of external to our organization specifically. Thanks, David.
Excellent. So, so I have mentioned in the chat, but if any of you have questions for our panelists, feel free to drop them in the chat and I will relay them. In the meantime, though, if perhaps we'll go back around in the reverse order. It looks like Sylvie is not going to be joining us, so this is our panel. Keith, could you highlight one particular area where you are looking for technology, where you could see there's an opportunity for technology to address a problem that you're currently struggling with?
Yeah, there's a few of them, but I think the digital piece that's been highlighted already by Claire and JC, I like your shirt, by the way, it is a big one. It's a big opportunity. There's a lot going on in this space currently. So the real-time monitor is absolutely critical. We're setting up different programs, both with supercluster initiatives on monitoring throughout the valley, our waterways overall management strategies that rolls up into what I call more of an integrated water management plan for every single site. So instead of looking at things in isolation, we have our pit water, we have our water treatment plants, we have our mills, that whole digital piece, and kind of informing better decisions to make sure we're maintaining compliance. We're planning for the future, bringing that analytics component into that, to predict further out weather trends, all this type of thing is absolutely an emerging opportunity. So instrumentation to support that work, including the real-time piece, as well as platforms and programs to help support that work. Everything from drone usage to collect water samples, you name it. I think that the digital piece is an emerging opportunity that we're really focused on right now.
Well, thanks. So can I pass that same question on to you, JC? What's one area that you want to highlight that you're really looking for a particular solution?
So there's many. It's tough to. I would say one of the areas that, and we're actively working on it, is essentially trying to work ourselves out of a job. So if we can find a way to to generate steam without doing water treatment, that would be a bit of a I guess the holy grail, I guess, of our operations, and we're trying to do that. But as I mentioned, fouling is always a problem, right? So that's a major challenge, but that's more for greenfield, I would say. And I'm gonna actually mention two, because the other one that I neglected to mention earlier is more present and damaging is integrity and corrosion. That's a major challenge for us right now. Conveying water through systems with dissolved oxygen present in some cases, high temperatures, high pressures. We corrode a lot of our equipment, piping, our boilers, our steam distribution systems. Almost everything in our plant corrodes at a fairly high rate. And so if there's a way to, if there's technology advances that can be made in the area of not only corrosion prevention and mitigation, but just the understanding of it, that's also of huge interest to us. That would be, like I said, this, corrosion really does eat our lunch in many cases. It's costing us millions and millions and millions of dollars. So the opportunity there, I think, is pretty significant.
Excellent, thank you. So passing on to Claire then, what's one opportunity that you see that's really important to highlight?
Yeah, so I was going to say digital, and I think I'm going to stick with it. But I think within that space, it's there's kind of the independent components, but it's really wrapping it all up. So the ability of kind of a lot of the new technologies we see coming online. And Keith, I appreciate kind of you saying that there's a lot going on in that space right now, because there certainly is. But like the need to bring it all together and have that kind of systems view that all that data can show, I think, is an incredible opportunity in the water space, and then even JC, as you mentioned, in kind of the GHG space as well, and to really be able to start to build the narrative and the understanding of how the whole system is operating, the impacts of our industries on our watersheds, and even what our industries are doing well, kind of to tell that whole story. So I think the roll up of all the data, I think, is a really big opportunity, and I think that that we need technology to start to bring that all together, because we're now in a world where data is plentiful, but sorting out the data is always a challenge. So, yeah.
Thank you. So we got a direct question for you, JC. Can you share any details on the type of fouling you're seeing in your system? Is this biological, chemical, hydrocarbons?
Yeah, all of the above. We get it all. Less biological. We do have freshwater systems where that's a bit of a challenge, but primarily the fouling that we see is often hydrocarbon based. It gums up our sensors. It lays itself down on heat exchangers and piping, and that's a challenge. So cleaning it, if it gets through to our boilers, it's a real problem. It creates hot spots, and we blow tubes in our steam generators and whatnot. But we also have a lot of inorganic fouling as well. So that's why I say it's a little bit of everything, organics and inorganics. So things like hardness, like calcium, magnesium, silica, like those scales that lay down within our systems. We have our waters often have a propensity to lay down scale. We have typically high levels of hardness and alkalinity in some cases, and silica as well. And those tend to be our major challenges from a scale deposition perspective. And that stuff, when it lays down, is very tenacious, and it's incredibly difficult to remove. I mean, you can acidify and things like that, but it's just expensive. It takes a toll on the equipment. And anyway, that's the type of fouling that we see a lot of, and it really does. It is really the bane of our existence.
Cool, thank you. So while we've got you, JC, can I then ask you, what's a success story, water technology success story that you've seen, whether directly in your current operation or elsewhere, something that really stands out to you as a new technology that's really made a difference?
Yeah, so I think if you just look at the in situ, especially the SAG-D is what it's often referred to, area in general, I think you'll see that we really couldn't have accessed reservoirs that were 600 meters at depth, or basically below mineable depths, and so we've used water treatment and steam generation to be able to do that. So that in and of itself is a huge success story. We've since made a shift from those softening type processes into evaporation, and that's also been a success story because it's more mechanical type systems. They're a little easier to manage. They're not as, I guess, prone to upsets. They're very mechanical in nature, so they're modular, and they we can get higher boiler efficiencies with better water quality. So the fouling is reduced. So that's been a success story, and you'll see that a lot of folks have moved towards evaporation as a technology to help recover our products. But I'll put also a quick shameless plug in for the Water Technology Development Center, because while it's not a technology per se, it's a large pilot facility that we built it started out with 6 companies. We've since amalgamated a few of them, so we're down to 4. But in terms of collaboration, we built a $150 million facility specifically to test water technologies. And, this year we're going to have, I think it's 8 or 9 pilots running. Next year we're adding a bunch more. And then we've got 5 years of testing planned. That's going to equal over $50 million in terms of technology development testing, so pilot testing. So that in of itself is a huge success story. We don't have a lot of results from that at the moment, but you can see that our focus on technology is quite high, and we're willing to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, in that regard. So that's something I've been involved with since the inception back in 2009-10 timeframe, and we're right in the middle of it now. So.
Cool. Yeah, I know lots of people really sort of their dream of success is to get to be able to test in that facility. So I've heard a lot of good things about it. Keith, could you then highlight perhaps a success story on your side?
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and it's one of the great things about water. Every single site has numerous success stories, which is fun, but. Probably, as mentioned, Tech's worked on selenium for over a decade, water treatment now, and putting in active water treatment plants to remove that selenium. And then about 5 years ago, we adapted a plan to look at doing it in old pits, so biologically reduced selenium using saturated rock fill process, which is largely developed internally. So essentially what we're able to do is in a reasonable time manner, effectively remove that selenium and nitrate, which is also a challenge for us. It's more cost effective. It works. It's simpler. You're using less reagents. Everything works well about it. And one of the great things about the success story, in my opinion, is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into that from our R&D group in making that happen and seeing a success. And now we have over 20,000 cubes per day of capacities in that technology. It's increasing moving forward, and it's been, in my opinion, a great success story, and it's long-term viable. So that's been a fun one.
Cool, thanks. And then Claire, what about you? What's a good success that you've seen?
Yeah, so I think this kind of builds off both what Keith and JC noted. When I was thinking about this question, I often think about, oh, what's the biggest, newest thing that happened? But I think over the years, some of the best success stories I've seen have actually been kind of the incremental changes. So the things that are not kind of massive and everyone's celebrating it, but like the day-to-day collaboration that allows people to kind of work together to make small changes that in the end actually have really big impacts. So things like, and often they're not that sexy, right? So online tank cleaning is something that's been a huge success and really helped a lot of folks, but isn't kind of the celebrated newest technology. Even kind of the shifts in online monitoring have been a huge success. So I don't want to think about one just one example, but kind of the whole broad kind of incremental small changes. Want to celebrate those because they're super important to the industry.
Cool. That's definitely a good point. Many times, there's lots of incremental changes actually make a bigger difference than one big thing that everybody wants to look at. So thank you. So Alan has thrown out a question for you. It's not on the initial list, but well, I'll toss it to you and see if any of you want to speak to this. And that's how are GHG emissions considered in your water-related processes and challenges? So, for example, water treatment energy requirements, or are GHGs just totally separate? Anybody want to jump in on that one?
I don't mind providing a reasonably quick answer. So over the last year, GHG is integrated into everything we do. So absolutely part of our project criteria, ranking different technologies based on GHG emissions. I won't say it overwhelms in terms of the decision being made, but it is absolutely factored in, and it's changed really quickly. And I see over the next 12, 24 months it becoming an even bigger factor. So absolutely plays a factor.
Yeah, I can add a bit there as well. And sometimes GHGs are factored into economics, and so applying a price to, I guess, burden a particular technology so that you have an understanding of what that I guess by artificially burdening a given technology, if it's got higher GHG output than another one, you kind of, in a roundabout way, direct yourself to lower emissions technologies. That's one strategy. The other one is that we just try to find technologies that help reduce GHG outputs, and we have strategy sessions and whatnot where we do that. We have groups that are specifically working on that, and it just so happens that a lot of them are intertwined with water treatment type, or water, I wouldn't say water treatment, but water related technologies, or there's a water aspect to them as well. So they get considered in that aspect. But it's a huge focus for our companies right now. I mean, it's going to be a major issue going forward, and we are actively seeking technologies to improve in that space, without a doubt.
Cool. Any quick thoughts, Claire?
Yeah, just maybe just, I won't take long, but just to kind of echo that, it's also obviously a huge focus for the government. So we see it in a lot of, and I'm sure most of the folks on this call are very familiar with this, but we see kind of the need to link water technology funding back to GHGs quite often. So that's, Alan and I have talked about this a lot, but that's certainly something that the interplay is pretty important there.
Excellent. So I have noticed a comment in the chat from Chris Godwald saying perhaps he can contribute. Chris, I must confess I don't know you, so I can't speak to your background. But if you have something quick to contribute, please.
Sure. So I'm with COSIA and I'm the senior technical advisor for COSIA.
Perfect.
A bit late. I apologize for that. One of the stunning paradigm changes that I've seen is at least on the mining side, when you think about water treatment, engineers love pipes and pumps. And sometimes inventions are about changing paradigms. And on the mining side, folks began looking for passive technologies. And they said, we know you can do it with pipes and pumps. We know you can treat this water. And the last number of years, they've been pushing in that way. And they're seeing using wetlands, they're seeing use photocatalysts, there's things like this. And often it's a paradigm change in the way that we actually approach things. So those on that side of it are leading to lower GHGs, and it has really been asking for a paradigm change. Of course, we use pipes and pumps and tanks and things like that. Rethinking your thoughts, and there is success. When you go looking for these things, there is good success.
Excellent, thank you. That's definitely a valid point. So appreciate that. So we've only got a couple of minutes left before we go into the breakout room. So apropos of going into the breakout rooms, quick question for the panel, and this is, I mean, I've been one of those technology companies that's banging on the doors of the big resource players, trying to introduce my technology to you because I'm convinced that I've got the next best thing and you really ought to want it. How should I be approaching you? How would you like to have water treatment technology companies approach you so as to most efficiently use your time and have the best chance of success for them? Because I know you guys want good technologies. You're interested in having the ability to review good technologies, but there's ways and ways of doing that. So if I could ask you to address that, please, just before we head into the breakout rooms.
So I've actually got a list here if you want me to take a first crack at it, because I've thought about this question and I deal with it all the time, as you can imagine. So I've got a list of do's and don'ts. I'll just run through them if that makes it easy in the time. So on the do side of things, understand the SAGD, the CSS process lineup, and have a good strategy as to how your technology would fit in that lineup and or replace existing unit processes. So there's actually a software out there called In Situ Sim that was developed by the industry, and there's a website for it. So that actually can help folks get up to speed and understand what is in a typical SAGD process lineup. Also on the do side, have some understanding as to what the value proposition is relative to the way we currently design and operate our systems. Do be clear about the shortcomings and have some thoughts on how they could be addressed. Do make a submission into companies' technology portals. So we have one at CNRL, COSIA has one. I'm sure everybody has a technology portal. Do be aware that our priorities can change with market conditions. Do remember that it takes time for us to work through these submissions, and do be prepared to put some skin in the game. The don't side, don't come and say, here's my tech. Do you see a fit in your lineup? I need you to put a bit of legwork into that. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time looking at it because we get a lot of requests. And don't ask for samples right out of the gates. We need to, that's a big burden for operations to do that. And we need to, do some paper confirmation that there's a value proposition there before we go off and do that. So those are my list of do's and don'ts. I'll leave it at that.
Excellent. Thank you. Spoken as somebody who has some experience. And Keith, I know you have a bunch of experience in this as well, as I've been involved in banging on your door. So what would you add to that list?
Yeah, I think JC covered it pretty well. The only maybe it goes a long way to have any supporting data. So I think JC mentioned the value, but understand what the problem is, obviously. And then I know sometimes it's hard, but if we're doing whatever it is related to water treatment, having a bit of a case study compiled for that pitch it goes a long way, such that it's not a circular conversation and you're demonstrating you understand what the problem actually is. So I think that's encompassed in JC's answer, and I totally buy into the, unfortunately, it does involve money to move some of these things forward, and there's tons of grants out there now, as clean energy programs, et cetera, that hopefully can help things along. But that is, for what it's worth, when he was saying do's and don'ts, I was writing them down. So it's a good list.
Excellent. Claire, I know you've had some involvement as well. Certainly CRIN are evaluating technologies. Anything that you would add on your side?
No, I think that was pretty thorough. So I appreciate that, JC. That's good.
Excellent. And I see Jennifer has a question, but we are at the end of the time that was allotted for the panel. If it's a really, really quick one, Jennifer, otherwise perhaps it would be good that you save it for the breakout rooms. And we can use that to as a starting point for the breakout rooms. So Alan, will you direct everybody to how the breakout rooms work then?
Yes, exactly. And thanks again to the panel. That was fantastic, just wrapping our heads around some of the challenges you're facing, but also some of how you're interfacing with the tech solutions. So the goal of the breakout rooms is really to continue these conversations in a bit of a less formal way. So for folks in the audience, feel free to turn your camera on as you're invited to join the breakouts, and unmute and sort of continue with the organic conversation, not just around our panel, but also we've got SMEs joining us from all across Canada, which is fantastic. So really an opportunity to chat with each other as well. I've got two quick notes. One, I have been told that if you have the newest version of Zoom, you will be able to switch between our two breakout rooms. We've got one for energy, one for mining, and we've pulled everyone into the room that is most aligned with the interests that you shared when you registered for the event. So you should be able to jump between the two, but hopefully you're also happy with the group we've put you with. And the only other piece, don't worry about trying to grab everyone's contact info in the breakout room. We will be sharing contact info after the event. So we've just got half an hour now for everyone to have a great chat, and we'll pull back in half an hour to wrap things up in the main room. So thank you, everyone. And Astrid, I will hand it over to you to kick the breakout rooms off. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Astrid, do we have most folks back in the room?
We're all back, yes.
Perfect. Well, that was fantastic. If the energy room conversation was any indication, I think we got some great perspective on some of the specific pain points that both solution holders and problem holders are facing around energy sector water challenges. And so I'm hoping that as WaterNEXT, we can continue to facilitate these conversations over the coming months and years. Part of our mandate is really to support both the acceleration side and the adoption side. So to host events for SMEs, but also to bring the adopters to the table and create these kind of intimate spaces where we can have honest conversations around challenges. I don't have much to say on the wrap up, aside from thanking again all of our panelists for joining today and sharing your thoughts. That was fantastic, and it was great to get a sense of the similarities and some of the differences between mining and energy spaces. I want to flag that we've got one more event coming up in our Water Tech Talk series. That's tomorrow. You can find that information on the Foresight website, and that's a conversation around water infrastructure challenges with a focus on Pacific Northwest. And we've got Kim Sturgis joining us as well from WaterSmart for that conversation. And then otherwise, we will share contact info for the participants for today's session. So if there's anyone that you connected with or didn't have a chance to connect with, that's your opportunity to follow up. So aside from that, my email is on the slide. If you have any questions around Foresight's work in the water tech space or WaterNEXT in general, I'm always happy to chat, and hopefully we can continue to loop you into events and programs as there are things that are up your alley that come up. We're hoping we've got a lot more coming, from a focus on digital water this fall, and I know a few of our panelists mentioned that digital is a big area, focus area for them. That's a big focus area for us as well. We recognize that's an emerging, exciting space for Canada, so that's part of where we're headed as well. So that's all for me. Please enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for joining us from 6 different provinces. It's really nice to be able to put this conversation together. See you all later.